Pod. I'm Shawn Michael.
And I'm Party Johnnetty. And together, we are the PodRockers.
The PodRockers are recording BEP live from our home elite studios to bring you, the PodRocker Nation, the very best in AEW wrestling commentary. This week, we are breaking down All In, which took place on Saturday, September 1st, 2018, at the Sears Center Arena in Hoffman's Estate, Illinois. So this is the show that planted the seed that would become AEW. So was the first independent wrestling show to sell over 10,000 tickets since like 93, I think they said it was.
Yeah, 1993, man. Absolutely insane. And I don't know if that's in reference to like the AAA type of show that went on. I think in California, I want to say that they sold a ridiculous amount of tickets before back in the day. That time period kind of makes sense to me, 93, if that's the other one. But yeah, absolutely insane, dude. Like, the whole backstory to this is just crazy. I mean, you have basically just a tweet that goes out. Someone asks Dave Meltzer, do you think any of the smaller promotions or whatnot would ever be able to sell out a 10,000 seated arena? And he was basically like, not a chance. And Cody was like, I'll take that bet. And then it just got even crazier. And it was like, holy crap, man. They really did it.
Yeah, I mean, coming from my perspective of being very much on the outside of wrestling at this point, I remember this, like, it was all over Twitter. Whenever I see like wrestling, like hitting the highlights, like I kind of like look into it. And I always liked Cody Rhodes when I saw him a little bit in WWE. And I heard he was doing this thing and like the tickets sold out in 30 minutes. And there wasn't even like a card in place at all. It was just they're doing this All In thing. It's going to be the biggest independent show ever. And was like blew my mind and really just kind of like sparked that fantasy of like, I always love an underdog story too.
Yeah.
And kind of getting to see Cody like going against the man kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Just absolutely loved it. So kind of just before we jump into a little bit of the pre-show and stuff, so from your perspective, when you heard about this event going on, did you watch it live when it happened?
Oh, yeah, dude. I was following this all, man, ever since like the being the elite stuff leading up to it, the tweets. The thing that like blew me away was the fact that it sold out in less than 30 minutes and I think only one match was announced. And it was just insane. The whole thing was insane and awesome. And I know we've talked about that on previous episodes about just how crazy it was to think the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny Omega getting like the Funko Pop deals, getting into Hot Topic and whatnot. But to actually experience at the time was just something unbelievable. And it was awesome to be a part of. And it built up to this crazy events that ultimately they got a plaque put up on the building with their faces on it. So, I mean, the whole thing was awesome, and I'm in the same boat as you. I loved the whole idea of the underdog story. I know originally when they were doing Being the Elite and they invaded Raw, they did this little thing with a bunch of the fans and whatnot. I believe it was in California. Thought that was hilarious and fun, and it was just basically not... It was paying homage to when DX invaded WCW.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because at the time when that happened, WCW was mad. And it's funny to see how mad WWE was. And, it got to a point where they were literally outside. They got inside the parking lot in their limo because they basically were wrestlers. And so the parking attendant or the security guard that was blocking the gate, I think he saw Cody or something. And he had enough knowledge to be like, oh yeah, that dude was in WWE. He must be in. So they allowed him in back there. And then it was hilarious. Everything that went from it. The Zombie Princess, Jimmy Jacobs, shout out to a local boy, Metro Detroit area. If you recall, he was actually writing for WWE at the time, and he kind of knew he was done. And so this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. This was the final nail in the coffin. He goes outside and takes a photo with the guys and then posts it on Twitter. And then they're like, what the hell did you do? So yeah, it was hilarious and awesome. And I mean, it was just one of those things that I was so happy to be there and be a part of, to not even be able to get a ticket. I thought for sure, I was like, well, I figured that tickets were going to get, I figured it would take about a week or so for tickets to sell out when originally it was happening. The way that people were talking about it and whatnot, it was like, okay, it's in Chicago. That's only a few hours away from me. I can easily get a ticket and go there. That won't be a problem. I'm like, well, I'm working. I'll just pay attention to it on my phone or whatnot. And so the tickets go on sale, and immediately I'm starting to hear from my friends and whatnot. Oh yeah, they're having connection problems. It's, I was like, oh, that's bound to happen sometimes. And next thing I know, I hear it's sold out, and I'm like, are you serious? And so I was like, well, it looks like I'm not going. But yeah, it was awesome to see that, and I just spent way too much time talking about it.
Oh, I think something like this, it's tough not to keep kind of going into it, because it's just like a feel good story. It's Cinderella story. Like, there's so many analogies you can make for it. But let's jump right into our gorilla position. So what gorilla position is when we give our general review and our BEP ratings by the number of barbershop windows for the matches from All In. So I kind of want to start with the pre-show a little bit, because we got a little bit more of that here than what we have before. I love the little bit when they come out, the Bucks and Cody, talking about the pyro guy, trying to get the fireworks going, talking about, because it's a very indie kind of feel to it with that. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to blow the whole budget on our fireworks and our pyro.
Yeah, right.
At a big wrestling show, what else should you have? You should have a classic wrestler. Here is Road Warrior Animal. And that was the only time you saw him was riding in the bike.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yep, he came in and like he just showed up on that motorcycle, and there's this weird like tie to Chicago with the Road Warriors too, and so that was awesome to see, and like the fans popped, and then that was it for him the rest of the show.
Because that's what I was expecting. I was like, okay, well maybe he'll show up later at some point, but no, it just kind of kept up with. It was just just rode in, because back when the Attitude Era started up and like the Road Warriors kind of had that rejuvenation, I always loved them. Like, I just loved their gimmick, and I loved their ability in the rings and everything. And, so seeing him just kind of gets that like old childhood. Because that's my like, whenever I think of my prototypical wrestler, I kind of go to the Road Warrior Animal and Hawk. So the Legion of Doom. And then Cody sold it really well when they're like, oh, we're going to have free merchandise. And you see the guy with the gun, and he's like, no, we don't have the budget for this.
Yeah, man. Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts about the pre-show part?
No, nothing too different from you, man. It was just fun to see it. And, even them like being like, all right, well, how do we go forward? Okay, well, let's just do this and let's get ready for the show.
All right, well, let's jump into the first match, or opening match. This was on I can't remember, I should have wrote it down. I didn't see what they, but it was basically the buy-in, what they call it now. What'd they call it for the All-In show?
Oh, man. I don't know if they had I just remember the name of the over the budget battle royal. I don't know if they actually, 0 Hour.
0 Hour, yeah. So that's how they kind of kicked this show off. It was like a 45-minute, 50-minute show that took place on WGN America, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And the opening match, this has really kind of been their staple for their openings, was SoCal Uncensored and the Briscoe brothers. So Party Johnnetty, what were your thoughts about this match?
It was a good match to have for the opener. It was nice to have those. The Briscoes have quite a storied past and a great history with ROH. So it was nice to see them a part of the show when it happened. That's another thing, too, that I think a lot of people have forgotten, is how much that both ROH and New Japan Pro Wrestling really helped out with this event. ROH specifically because of basically being a U.S. company. So to see all this, it was a good back and forth. The Briscoes are always an entertaining tag team. They're crazy. And and I don't know if you've ever watched them or seen any of their matches and whatnot, but I think those guys live the gimmick, or the gimmick lives them.
Nice.
They're very, very much what you see is what you get. They're chicken farmers based in the East Coast somewhere. I forget what East Coast state, either Maryland or Connecticut, I want to say. And it's one of those where you're like, what? Farming in the East Coast? That happens? But yeah, no, they're chicken farmers, and they're dem boys, and they definitely are dem boys. They are crazy, and it was a fun match between all guys. What I expected, kind of typical. It was great. It really showcased, I felt like, an ROH tag match on a bigger stage. I loved the ending where Frankie's up on one of the Briscoe shoulders. I think he's up on Jay's shoulders or Mark's. I always get the two confused. And then he power slams the other one, and then Scorpio comes in and he does that like bicycle kick basically to the other Briscoe to block him from trying to interfere with the count, and they get the win. It's a nice opener. I gave it 3 barbershop windows.
Yeah, you kind of touched on. I loved. So I know Scorpio had a belly to belly over the top rope, which I thought was an awesome move. And this was kind of my first match watching the Briscoe brothers, and I've heard the name mentioned. They did not look like anything I was expecting.
That's the thing too, man. When people think of the Briscoes, they think of the old school Briscoes. You don't
exactly.
You don't think of these Briscoe brothers. It's a different spelling. So yeah,
and I didn't realize that. So that's what I was expecting. I was expecting like these like clean cut looking guys, and they walked out like, who the fuck is this?
Yep.
And I love their finishing move, or one of their finishing moves, the redneck boogie.
Yes,
I think is what they called it. Was pretty awesome. But yeah, I was in the same boat here. I gave it 3 barbershop windows. So now we jump into our over the budget battle royale. Just a couple notes I had on this. Brian Cage, first time I ever seen him. He is a big mofo.
Yeah, he is.
That dude is stacked. Do you know where he's wrestling now at all, or?
So he was a part of Lucha Underground. I'm not sure where he's. Oh, he might be in Impact right now. He might still be in Impact, I believe. Other than that, he might be on the independent scene. He is definitely a big boy. Man, the amount I remember like watching just one of his interviews and whatnot that. He talked about his calorie intake for the day, and it's just unbelievable. But
he looks like, whenever you think of going to the store and buying like a knockoff wrestling figure, like he kind of has that build, like just super like huge. And I just like, it just like caught my eye really quick. To jump back, I did like how they started this battle royale with just everybody on the outside. And then when the bell rang, they all just got in. So just kind of a quick go.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
The Hurricane choke slamming a bunch of guys. Love that. I was always a big Hurricane fan too, so I kind of enjoyed that.
Yes.
I don't know. Did you ever watch Doug from Nickelodeon?
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah.
Did you catch the reference?
No, I didn't.
So it was Tommy Dreamer was hitting people with a trash can. I think it was Excalibur was like, oh, he's out there banging on a trash can. And the second commentator is like, well, what's he going to do next? Drum on a street light?
Oh, man, I missed that.
Which is the classic Doug's band in Nickelodeon. Yep. So that made me giggle.
Oh, that's awesome.
Tommy Dreamer's dusty outfit, like we saw him in the Battle Royale from Double or Nothing. He kind of had the same thing, had a little bit of an homage there to Dusty.
Mm-hmm.
Austin Gunn, I heard it sounds like him and Billy are related somehow. Do you know how they're related?
Yeah, that's his son.
That's all. I assume that's what it was. That's pretty awesome. So is he? He's not in AEW that I've heard or anything, but is he kind of somebody of note, or where's he at? Kind of in the current wrestling.
I think he's really just still kind of on the independents. He might have signed with ROH. Actually, he's now signed with ROH. Yeah, he was doing his own thing. He was kind of one of those situations where that's what he wanted to do. I think he was in a very similar boat to like Brian Pillman Jr. at the time, where WWE basically kind of gave him this open invite, like, "Hey, man, you're pretty much good to come, just whenever you want to." But I think he Cody Hall was the same way. Scott Hall's kid. you've heard this at least, that like those guys basically said, no, I want to go around and I kind of want to try to learn and prove myself, that I don't want this just handed to me. I want to go out there and do this. And so that's what they've been doing. And yeah, it was cool to see Austin get in the ring there. That was my first time ever seeing him, actually. I didn't know that. I think Billy Gunn either did a podcast with Stone Cold or he did it with Chris Jericho, in which, you know, they were even talking about just how him hanging out with his son now that he has more time on his hands and whatnot, and how his son and him were both into working out and kind of doing that father and son time. But I had no clue that his son was into wrestling, like actually being a professional wrestler.
He had that build. I mean, he looked like a younger Billy Gunn.
Yeah,
so I
he
could
did.
definitely see it.
Yeah,
which is cool because I love seeing Billy Gunn in this Royal Rumble, and also the one back in Double or Nothing, because Billy Gunn was probably my second favorite wrestler after the Heartbreak Kid. Like, I loved Billy Gunn. It was, you know, when HBK kind of left the scene for a bit because of injuries, Billy Gunn was kind of getting that push, and I was like, I want to see that guy like reach the top. It didn't quite happen, but all said and told in this, it felt like most Rumbles. It kind of started out slow but got hot towards the end. I think for most Rumbles, unless there's something fantastic, I think this will probably always be my rating, but I gave it 2.0 Barbershop Windows.
Yeah, you know, it's Battle Royals. It seems like people either tend to like them or they just think, whatever. It can definitely look the same depending on what's happening. I liked the Double or Nothing, the Casino Battle Royale, a lot better than this one. I like the idea of them coming out in the groups. It seemed more like one at a time, kind of similar to Royal Rumble in a way. But on the other hand, though, too, sometimes Battle Royals, it's just the cheap gimmick of the night to try to get a lot of the guys seen and in the ring and whatnot. But it can be fun too. For me, Bully Ray was the highlight of this Battle Royale. Also Flip being a part of it, Flip coming in and doing the Chico El Luchador gimmick. If you've watched Being the Elite, one of the reasons why I liked this over the budget Battle Royale was just some of the stories that happen. A lot of these matches, actually, Being the Elite really fleshed out these storylines. And it's interesting to see it just in general, watching All In, if you had never watched any of the Being the Elite episodes that led up to it. Because then some of it, I'm like, oh man, some of this really doesn't make that much sense. And so you're kind of lost. The Chico El Luchador thing was actually, I believe it was Rocky Romero's gimmick. Like, that's what he was doing. And it was kind of poking fun and having a bit of a laugh at just this crazy character that supposedly was based, you know, this Lucha Libre luchador, and how he kind of, I think it might be, I could be wrong, but I think it might be poking fun at like El Santo and some of the greats who basically were like, you're not doing any crap to me. I got to look strong.
I gotcha.
And so they took it and they just went crazy with it. And to see when Flip pulled off the mask, because Flip's own story was constantly trying to get booked for All In. And then basically like Cody always being the blockade to it, saying, fuck you, Flip, you're not getting booked. And so it was hilarious and awesome to see the story that happened. And so this was Flip's way of getting in. Chico El Luchador was booked, but Flip Gordon wasn't booked. So Flip became Chico and ended up winning the Battle Royal. I gave it a 3 just because of that. That was kind of funny. I liked in the beginning where Bully Ray, before Chico could even get in the ring, he powerbombs him through a table. So everyone forgot that he was in it. And they were like, oh man, Bully Ray's going to have to face Jay Lethal, which would have been a fun match either way, but it was good. So fun little story with what happened with the whole book Flip thing.
You know, and I've heard a lot of people kind of complaining about, it's like, if you like, I hadn't seen any of the Be the Elites yet for this. I'm kind of working my way up through them, but I still loved it. But to know that there was this other thing, that if I was involved with this, like I am to this point, getting that little extra on a 10-15 minute YouTube video, that leads you to like having this, 3-4 hour event where it's just wrestling matches. You already know all the backstory. You don't need all that like fed to you on a plate. But I've heard people bitching about it's like, well, I don't want to do research on the internet. It's like, yeah, well, I don't want 6 matches, or I don't want 3 matches in a 3-hour pay-per-view where 45 minutes of it's skits and things like that. Like, I want to see a lot of good matches like you got in this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think what they're doing now is a good happy medium between the two. Just taking basically the highlights of the highlights of the YouTube stuff, playing it beforehand so you get 2 to 3 minutes and then the match. And that way you kind of satisfy both parties. I love utilizing YouTube and online and social media to help continue a storyline. I just feel like that's the way it's going. I feel the younger crowds today, if you want to keep wrestling relevant, a lot of the young kids watch YouTube, and that's just one way to do it, man. Like, ask kids today, what do you watch? And they'll tell you some YouTube channels, and you're like, wait, what? I was talking about TV, and they're like, that is my TV, old man.
Yeah, exactly, right? What do you mean I gotta wait till 7 to watch something?
Yeah,
what is this? Dinosaur times?
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Well, that jumps us into the All-In show that kicked off, and it's a guy now that I think we both love, but it was early in his history. But he got the debut as the first official full match on AEW, or not AEW, in All In, and it was the Matt Cross versus Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MGF. So, Party Johnnetty, how did you feel about this match?
Oh man, I forgot how good this match was, dude. No, I forgot number one. So Matt Cross, he's also Son of Havoc in Lucha Underground, and he's under a mask. So obviously he wasn't under a mask in this one. I just forgot how good he looked in this match. I also forgot just how talented he is in general. He was great. I loved MJF. This was really everyone's first time getting a good look at MJF outside of if you followed him on the indies. MJF had a great arm submission going on in the match too. I loved his little back and forth. He kind of called Matt Cross an old man because of the gray hair and whatnot. Good showcasing of both men. And this actually, to just briefly, instead of going through the history of everything, but going back to the YouTube stuff as well, MJF was a guy that Cody had personally kind of handpicked, and that's why you see like this whole like Cody's my best friend type of thing storyline that's happening now. Really, Cody was like, you guys are going to like this kid, MJF, blah, blah, blah. And so you got to see him on Being the Elite, and it was like, who is this kid, And it wasn't really full-fledged MJF that you get to see now. It was a great, like, getting to know the character and being like, this guy seems like he's a dick. and then you got to see him wrestle, and it was like, oh, sweet. I really like this. And I really forgot how much I enjoyed this opening match. Matt Cross looked great. I don't know what he's doing now, to be completely honest with you. I don't know if he's caught up in the whole Lucha Underground contract debacle, or if he's just like, hey, I'm going in my own direction and doing the independent scene. I don't know what he's doing, but I can tell you that the dude is very, very talented, and it was great to see he and MJF wrestle. So I gave this 4 Barbershop Windows. I loved it.
It's pretty much the same kind of stuff. I think I rated this probably a little too low in my initial thing, but you had MJF kind of say, like, at the beginning of the match, he was going to look like he was going to jump over the top rope. He stops, says, I don't have to do flips to get over.
Yes.
I mean, I love that they're using those terminologies too. It doesn't seem like that's something you really hear like in, other promotions. So I love that they're kind of playing on that.
Yeah, right.
Like you said, Cross flipping over the rope was like a holy shit moment. He had a bunch of those. And then as MJF is kind of fighting him, he kind of says, you suck, Cross. So I kind of love, like you said, if I didn't already kind of know what MJF was at this point, I probably would just think he's some kind of dick or jerk or, some pompous asshole, which he is technically. But it was a good overall match, a good starter to the actual pay-per-view. I rated it a 2.75 Barbershop Windows, which it probably should be a little bit higher. But that's kind of what I came with on my first blush. So good opening match. Excited to see, MJF a lot more coming forward.
Yeah.
All right, so our next match, this was kind of interesting to me. It was Christopher Daniels versus Stephen Amell. And I will say that, I don't know if you're a big Arrow fan. I've watched like the first season or two, and I remember hearing about him being here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. And I guess Kevin Smith and his brother kind of had like this like weird Twitter battle. And so it's just like, for some reason, I kind of have like hostility towards Stephen Amell. No like reason why, but I just give him a lot of heat.
Yeah.
So when I heard he was going to be in this, I was like, oh yeah, of course, Stephen Amell is going to be in a wrestling event.
Yeah,
but
man.
The match started out a little slow, but Amell looked good. Like I felt like he did pretty well. I love Christopher Daniels getting the Fallen Angel chant. The table spot. I'm really curious as Stephen Amell is getting on there. TV execs were watching this, like thinking, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, right.
They're because this guy's like he is the thing on Arrow. Like this is like in his at this point probably it's 4th season. He falls wrong and breaks his arm. Hey, guess what? TV production shut down for a month.
Yeah, right.
But I thought he did a great job in the match. His double birds to Christopher Daniels I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
And then of course his cross ring drop kick was pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, his like coast to coast-esque.
Yeah. So I dug it. Like I got a lot of respect for Stephen Amell now. I do like that they gave Christopher Daniels the win because I think that keeps the psychology of it real. Like Stephen Amell's like he's a strong guy, like he's built, but Daniels has been doing this for 20 years at this point.
Yeah, man, 20 plus.
He would know what he was doing. So for Amell to come in and get the victory, it'd be unless it was like a cheap victory. But and the other thing I love is as they had the table out there, the announcers talk about Chekhov's table. If you're familiar with any kind of like script writing or storytelling, you always talk about Chekhov's shotgun, right? Like you don't talk about the shotgun unless you're going to use it.
Yep.
And right here, you got the table that's there. You're going to use it. So I gave this one a 3.125. Barber Shop Windows.
Nice, man. Nice. Yeah. I totally forgot about this match. I mean, not to say it wasn't a good match. I liked it, but I totally forgot that this happened. It just escaped my mind. Stephen Amell had initially started his like wrestling in-ring debut with WWE. He and Cody are obviously friends outside of this. And they kind of had a back and forth, and they did this whole like Green Arrow versus Stardust thing, and it was a tag team. And he actually legitimately trained to do the WWE match. And at first they were worried and they didn't want to because it's a celebrity, and it's like, oh, do we really want to have a celebrity wrestle in a match? And they saw that how serious Stephen Amell was, and the dude just kept training. I think he still trains actually. And I totally forgot how much I was impressed by him wrestling. And I got to give it to him too. The dude went through a table.
Yeah.
Like the fact, exactly like you said, and in today's day and age, especially with the insurance and whatnot, your agents and your TV execs and everyone being like, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. Are you crazy? No way. You can't get in a ring to wrestle, let alone go through a table. It wasn't a bad match at all. And I mean, I think by this time, this might have been his 3rd or 4th match that he actually had.
I thought they said he's had 2 matches before.
Yeah, and he had a 6-man tag. It was SCU and with the Bucks, in which actually, if I believe correctly, this was the match he was holding Christopher Daniels, and he went down, and it was very scary. He really could have screwed up Christopher Daniels' neck in one of those spots with like the Meltzer driver. And it's just so lucky that nothing happened, but it really it got people scared and upset. And so, yeah, there was a lot of heat there, but they had this match, and it was, no hard feelings. And it was a decent match. A little funny that Jerry Lynn was the ref, as I was like, I don't know if I can't recall if there was any storyline to that whatsoever or not, or if they were just like, yeah, Jerry Lynn, you're the special guest referee. A lot of the guys have a lot of respect for Jerry Lynn. He's a good guy, very talented, and he helped out a lot of guys on the indies big time. So cool to see him. I gave the match a 3.25, so not too far off from you.
Nice. All right, so we have our 4-way match with Tessa Blanchard, Dr. Britt Baker, Chelsea Green, and Madison Rayne. So, Party Johnnetty, how'd you feel about this match?
Oh, I really liked this. It was fun to see all of them. Did you get to see Tully Blanchard there for a second too, Shawn? Yeah, he was supporting his daughter Tessa there, and it was a great back and forth between all the women, and they each got to showcase just themselves. It was awesome to see Madison Rayne, and then to see Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker, and Chelsea Green. Madison Rayne, she was with Impact, and it was like she had been with Impact for a while, and I can't remember if she went to ROH, like the Women of Honor, and then she went back to Impact. I'm getting my stuff all confused, but either way, my experience with Madison, I watched her in Impact, really liked her, and I was happy to see her with this too. And it looked like she went away from Impact and she did a little bit of independence and she got even better. And so it was cool to see everyone. Tessa looked great, obviously. They all looked good, but Tessa looked great. And even with that little bit of a botched finish, it still worked for me. Really enjoyed the match in general. Liked all the stuff that went with it. I gave it a 3.75 Barbershop Windows.
Nice. Yeah, I love the entrance with Tessa and her family there. Like, it was just like, I want to see more of that stuff. Kind of like the story behind the story. I know, it was I don't remember what year it was, but it was the Ric Flair versus Vader match back in the day where they did this whole like behind the scenes where it's like, oh my God, like you could die in the ring, Rick. They like brought out his family. It was like a whole big thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I just love, like, it brings that realism to it. So I really love seeing that. I just looked and I think she's signed to WWE right now, so we won't get to see this character, but Chelsea Green, I love her gimmick. Like, it's like a Two-Face kind of thing. Like, she comes out carrying like this bride's flower thing, and like it's just like crazy is in my wheelhouse, and that was awesome.
Yeah, right.
This was a quick, exciting match. Like you said, the finish was kind of weird. It had the quick reversals and then the 3 count that looked like they tried to break it up, but then it ended the match. So it looked a little goofy there, but all in all, I enjoyed it and gave it a 3.85 Barbershop Windows.
Nice.
So we get to, I think they consider this one of the 3 main events, but it was Cody with a bunch of people, Brandy Rhodes, Diamond Dallas Page, Glacier, and Tommy Dreamer, taking on the NWA champion Nick Atlas, who had Jeff Jarrett, Samuel Shaw, Shawn Daivari, and Tim Storm. So the first thing I really noticed about this, and kind of seeing all the other pay-per-views with Cody in it, Cody can set up and sell a story. It was all about the history of the NWA title. It was all about his dad. It was all about him kind of coming up and doing this thing. The NWA title, the 10 pounds of gold. Now, I got a lot of questions I was going to ask you about this. So
yeah, sure.
I know of the NWA title, right? Like, I know it when WCW kind of kicked off, it was kind of tied into that, and it's kind of made a resurgence, I think, in the last like 5 or 10 years. But to a true wrestling fan, what does the NWA title mean?
So I mean, that's tough, right? That's tough to say, dude, because like it depends when you became a fan, and it depends on what type of fan you were. If you've always been a WWE fan, WWF/WWE fan, I'll be completely honest. The NWA title means zilch to you. The only time it might mean something to you is when Ric Flair came into the WWF at the time. And that's kind of it. Other than that, it really arguably does not have any significance. And I mean, I don't want to say it like that, because then you get into the whole WCW championship belt and whatnot, and that's just like, okay, well, the lineage is there, and it's like, it's just tough to talk about. But on face value, if you're a WWE hardcore fan, it really doesn't mean anything to you. Like, if you asked any fan that had been watching WWE I would argue, say, the past 20 years, hey, do you know what the NWA title is? or what's it mean to you? They'd be like, not much. I mean, yeah, I know what the NWA is, obviously, but now if you ask a Southern fan, or if you ask a fan from pretty much, I would say, the 70s and 80s, that title means a lot. And there's just a storied and a history past with that NWA title and what comes with it. And so to some, they still believe that NWA title is the end-all be-all title. To others, it's just, nothing more than another belt. And that the World Wrestling Entertainment Championship, the Universal Championship, or the Heavyweight Championship is the now belt that you should take into consideration as the belt. But yeah, there's a great storied past with the NWA Championship. I mean, we're talking back into the 40s, the late 40s, and then moving on up. And I mean, it's just there's a lot to it. I know it reached when the NWA kind of started to fold and not really gain the traction that it used to. It didn't nearly have as much significance to it as what was happening in WWE, but it still is a storied title, and it still has this respect to it that if you are in the business, it means something to you, at least to I would argue, a lot of guys. Maybe not so much the younger guys who grew up on just WWE stuff, but definitely if you had watched stuff in the 70s, 80s, and arguably the early 90s, it means stuff to you. And Billy Corgan, who would obviously mean something to him, is bringing it back into a way that it means something. So along with Cody, and Nick Aldis and Billy Corgan, they're making it into something that it really means a lot more now. So that's kind of cool. Sorry for that long answer.
No, it totally makes sense, because I always feel bad because I was more of a WWF fan back, like in the early 90s growing up. So I bounced back and forth between WCW. They kind of got like gist of the NWA title, but to me, I didn't know the full aspect of it. So it's kind of cool to hear a little bit. And I would love to see, like, watching this, it made me feel like this is probably the most important title in the world. Like, that's how much they sold this story really, really well.
Yeah.
And that's, one of the other kind of thoughts I have is like, with this storytelling, like you see the background, they really laid into that for Cody on this. I'm excited to see AEW start to tell these backstories of these wrestlers, kind of like their history, where they come from, and why it means so much for them to do these things. Kind of the Darby, storyline. Like, you see why he's in this thing, and I'm really excited to kind of start seeing that.
Yeah.
As far as the match itself, it was a real grounded match I enjoyed. It felt kind of slow compared to all the matches that we had a lot of high spots with, but I like these kind of more, traditional wrestling matches. Like, I do like the high flying stuff at times, but definitely love a good like ground match, which is kind of what this felt like to me.
Oh, for sure, man. I agree.
I'm curious about your thoughts on this too. So I know, and this is just something I've learned in the recent years, like when the ref crosses their arms, like Hebner did in this, it's supposed to be like a legit injury.
Yep, throwing up the X.
Yeah, but they've kind of been doing that more as a work, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because I think fans have become kind of accustomed to it. So I'm curious what you think about that. Is that something that, you feel is playing too far into it, or do you think that adds to it, or what's your thoughts on that?
It's tough, man, because you're blending reality with kayfabe. I mean, as long as everyone backstage obviously knows that at that time the X is the work, then I guess it's not bad. But then on the other hand, too, as a fan, I don't want to see wrestlers get hurt, obviously. Yeah. And as a fan, it reached that point where, yes, I know what the X means. That means that a dude's legitimately hurt. And I'm always been one, no matter what it is, to pause the show if someone's hurt and let's take care of them and then restart the show, But in this case, yeah, I don't know. I always go back and forth on it. Like, I'm not a big fan of throwing it up if it's not needed. I mean, I don't like the boy who cried wolf stuff. Obviously, the guys in the back know, hey, this is the spot where Earl Hebner's going to throw it up. But
yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to really think. I don't want to be taken away from the match, really. And arguably you can say, well, that doesn't really take you away because you're still paying attention to it. But on the one hand, I'm not paying attention to the match anymore. I'm paying attention to the well-being of Cody. And so to me, that takes away from it. It legitimately makes me think, oh, shoot. But there's other times too, like, I mean, where Shawn Michaels went unconscious after a match, like, on Raw or something a long, long time ago, and they had to get the oxygen mask out and stuff. Like, I was like, as a kid, I was like, holy shit, man, scared to death for him. And, like, I mean, that was cool, but I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm so back and forth on it. It's just like, I've seen too many guys get injured and, you know, having to throw up the X, especially like on the indie scene and whatnot, and guys not knowing in the back even whether it's a work or if it's legitimate. So it's like, to me, that's the reason why I'm not too big of a fan of putting it in when it's not a legitimate thing.
It's like you said with the boy cried wolf thing. Like, if you're in the audience and you see that, you're like, oh yeah, okay, like he's not hurt. You suck, get up. You suck, get up.
Yeah, right.
And then you find out, like, oh no, he's actually paralyzed now. You're like, oh well, I feel like a complete piece of shit now.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
But during that whole kind of, you know, is he okay? Is he not okay? There was a great shot. I don't know if you caught it, where, you know, it continued the story of Cody. He had his hand on the table, like inches away from the NWA belt. He wasn't touching it. He wasn't like on top of it, but his hand was like so close to it. Very great art. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it was a great artistic kind of saying, like, oh, he's this close and, you know, he's hurt, but he's going to make a comeback for it kind of thing. And I really like that. I almost teared up a little bit when I saw that. One thing I wanted to ask, and again, on some of these things, I'm never sure like what's not taboo to ask, but what's offensive to ask. But, you know, we saw Cody get color in this after that moment. Like, he was just cut right above the eyebrow. And I know you've done a lot of training, and I was going to ask you the question is, like, have you ever gotten color? And the other thing I was wanting to ask is, how is this taught during wrestling school, or is this something that wrestlers pick up after they've kind of been in it for a bit?
So I've never had color, but I do also want to preface to say, like, I've never gone through 100% complete training. The training that I did go through was for management only, like a manager's position. And if I went out today and I said so-and-so trained me, people would be like, who is that? And they would think that I was a liar. So that's why I just tell people that, yeah, I did train, but I'm not like 100% official. So I was never taught the ways of blading or anything like that. So I can't speak on that end, but you are taught it. It just depends. I don't know if each school will teach you that, or if you're going to be taught by some of the wrestlers backstage. You can hear some of the guys' stories about how they were taught about the gigging and whatnot. So it just depends on your situation. And I mean, it really, there's the two ways of it. You can be busted open a hard way, which is by accident or maybe an intentional, hey, we're gonna bust you open. Are you okay with that? Or you can get yourself to the point where, you know, you hide the piece of the razor blade in the tape or whatnot, or the ref has it and then he hands it off to you. It's a sleight of hand trick with some of this stuff. This case, I really didn't pay too close of attention, but it might have actually been DDP that handed it to Cody when he checked on him. Usually you get that when the guy checks on the wrestler. If the wrestler doesn't have the blade on him at that point, then it's usually given off by the ref, or whoever's checking on him will kind of give him the blade. And then you'll see him either, you know, cut. Well, you won't see it. If you see it, he did a bad job.
Yeah.
You know, that's when he'll start to bleed. And, you know, you usually do it up in your hairline and whatnot, like your forehead part. And so sometimes guys will take aspirin or whatnot beforehand because, you know, your blood thins.
That makes sense.
And so that way, yeah, you get more juice. And Other times it depends. Like recently, Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar, gosh, maybe 6 months ago, maybe more. If you don't know by now, I'm terrible with my times. Brock cut him open hard way with an elbow, but it was intentional to do it. And so it was that's gnarly. You can hurt yourself cutting yourself open with a blade, but you really can mess yourself up and give yourself a nasty scar if you're cut open hard way and you're doing it on purpose. You shouldn't want to do it on purpose. Like, to me anyway, as a guy who trained with MMA and whatnot, where that's not, obviously you don't train with blading in MMA, but to be cut open with an elbow is a nasty cut because it basically is just ripping your skin in a like a lightning design pattern, it can be gross. So you really don't want that. Whereas like a cut with the razor blade is just a simple straight across cut. You know, some guys are really bad at it. Some guys look nasty. Look at Dusty Rhodes even, whose forehead was just gnarled up. Bruiser Brody, gnarled up forehead. It can look gross, but Abdullah the Butcher as well. So yeah, that's I've never gotten color. Would I do it? I don't know. I'll be honest. Maybe. I guess the sick part of me would be like, yeah. To me, like if it tells a story and it does a really good job, yeah. But I have to trust who I'm working with.
Yes,
and like I have to make sure that they don't have anything, because I know, I'm clean, but I don't know if they're clean. And if we're both getting color, I don't want blood to mix, So it's definitely it's you've heard of the horror stories on the indie scene about a guy getting Hep C because of someone else. So
yeah, I know. I think it was Steve Austin's podcast I listened to where he talked about kind of where they hid the blades and stuff. And it sounds like I guess they don't hide the blades as much anymore. Like you said, the ref might have it probably for safety. Because I know in his podcast he mentioned like some guys used to hide it in their mouth.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Which, I mean, in a match, you get hit and you suck some air in, and all of a sudden, hey, guess what? You got a piece of a razor blade in your stomach, which, if that's what they're doing, has had to have happened. So, again, some of the most ballsy people in the world for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There is always the stories of like Abdullah the Butcher who would have the razors hidden in his fingers, like he'd basically tape up his fingertips. And then, guys would be talking, they're like, wait a minute, you want Abdullah to hit me in the throat? And they're like, he has he has blades in his fingers, right? But yeah, man, some of those guys are absolutely crazy. Usually, yeah, it depends on where it is. Some guys were really big on taping their wrists, and then you'd have that piece of tape that covered the blade, and you put it on the inside of your wrist. And other guys, yeah, you just basically hand it off to the ref type of thing. And yeah, you got some crazies too with it, let me tell you.
So kind of going forward. So did you know, I've noticed Cody's got a lot of cool stuff on his gear. On his boots, he had, it looked like '6 and '06. Do you know what that was in reference to at all?
That I am not sure, to be completely honest, unless that is referencing either his dad, his passing maybe, or could be something else. I mean, his dad passed in 2015, so the '06 doesn't make sense to me, but his dad did pass in June. So I don't know. I mean, that might have been something that I recall back when this actually happened. Someone saying, oh, hey, yeah, the 6 and the '06 was this. But off the top of my head, I can't recall what it is without looking it up.
Even with that, though, like the history, when he had Atlas in the figure 4, they talked about that's how his dad won. I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
Continuing with the storytelling, when Cody was like dragging his way to the rope, Brandy grabbing his hand and Hebner telling him to get away, and she's like, he's my husband.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Like, you talk about, we saw the match with him and his brother at Double or Nothing, like the emotions that it brought from you. And a lot of times, like, I think wrestling matches will bring some emotion out of you, but that kind of connection, like father, son, brothers, significant others, it was just awesome. And then the spot on Brandy where you see Atlas, drop the elbow on her, it really felt like this was a match. I know a lot of people have bitched about this I've been listening to where And some of these matches, there's no face or there's no heel. It's just a match, which I don't hate that. It doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah, no, it doesn't me either.
I mean, it's all about the story. I mean, it's a competition. You know, like in the Super Bowl, there's no bad or good guy. It's just a competition.
Exactly. That's how I feel.
I really felt like the finish on this was a wrestling pin. So it was a very wrestling, and Cody's a state champion wrestler. And I'm curious you probably talk about in yours maybe, but I'm curious about how you feel about these type of wins. But the last thing I was going to ask too is with Earl Hebner, I know he's really been involved with AEW too. Do you know what his fallout with WWE was? Because I know he was kind of the face of WWF back in the day for me, and he just kind of disappeared.
Oh, yeah. So Earl Hebner and his brother would run a shop outside of WWE in which they would sell stuff. Like they would sell like ring worn gear, and they would sell like canvas stuff or stuff with pay-per-view, and apparently they weren't supposed to be doing that. And something happened. I don't know if it was they got permission to do it originally and then that permission got revoked, or they never got permission and they were saying, well, we're not selling any of that. We're just selling, we're collecting wrestling memorabilia, and, we're just in the selling and trading game. And I think it reached a point where it just went a little too far, and Earl Hebner actually got fired because of it. He got fired from the WWE, and depending on who you talk to, it was that's the whole reason. WWE claimed that, I think they claimed that he stole from them, which, I mean, if you look at it like on face value, it kind of does seem like that. I mean, yeah, I guess he did steal merchandise from them.
That's interesting. So yeah, he was trying to do like a side hustle, maybe cutting like side of the ring off as they're tearing it down and selling it. Yeah,
stuff like that, I guess. I don't know if it was anything more than just, hey, he was bootlegging items or saying that they were official items from the WWE and they really weren't, or if they, it was a really weird, because it was a very much he said case between Hebner and Vince, that he was selling illegitimate items or selling unofficial stuff that he wasn't supposed to be. So it was just very messy is what I recall from it all. And Hebner ended up going with TNA Impact, working for them forever, and now he's with AEW.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's kind of, I've never heard too much about that story, so that's kind of interesting. But all told, in this match, I gave it a 4.5 Barber Shop Windows. So, Party Johnnetty, how'd you feel about this match?
Oh, man. So, I loved the entourages with both Nick and Cody. Absolutely loved it. There's just the story with all that. I love DDP coming out and hitting Daivari with the diamond cutter. It's kind of funny, like seeing all those people and then being like, oh, wow, like some of those guys work for WWE now, like Jeff Jarrett and Daivari. And I'm trying to think if any of the other ones do, but I can't recall if Sam Shaw got a tryout or whatnot for NXT. I don't know what he's doing now, but anyway, I really enjoyed that figure four spot. The wrestling pin, it reminded me of kind of like the Bret Owen finish. I really like the Bret Owen finish with WrestleMania, where Owen beats Bret like at his own game.
Oh yeah,
and Bret thinks he's gonna get him, and then Owen just falls down on top of him and gets the pin. That was great storytelling. This match, I don't know, man. This is where it comes out. I feel like I'm going to have to start getting a soundbite for myself. Expected more. It's just the buildup that they had going for this was so awesome. Everything was so awesome for this that I was just expecting like this battle of giants. I was expecting a very similar to a Cody Dustin Rhodes match that we actually got. Like, that Double or Nothing match is what I was expecting between Nick and Cody, just with the build-up with everything. And I remember even at the time, I can't recall what Meltz gave this. I don't think he rated it that high, but I could be wrong. I know a lot of people too were just like, oh, there's that 3-star General Cody still doing 3-star matches.
I gotcha.
And it really, like, I don't know, it was a good match, and I like the difference compared to all the other matches that were going on, but just I was expecting a little bit more, and I feel like I didn't get it. And both guys, I feel, are really talented. Nick Aldis, who was Magnus and TNA beforehand, he's married to Mickie James, who's a wrestler in WWE. He's just great too. And it just, I don't know. Nothing really happened for me in this match. I mean, I liked it. Don't get me wrong, but it was my expected more match. And I gave it a 3.5.
I can buy that. Yeah, I think the finish to me was a little bit weak with that, but okay, yeah, I can see that. So our next match, we see Hangman Page taking on Joey Janela. So, Party Johnnetty, how'd you feel about this match?
Oh man, I love the Chicago street fights, the Cracker Barrel spots, the literal Cracker Barrel spots. And how the barrel itself played a part into the match had me dying. Absolutely loved it. Here's another match that really going into it, everyone knew the story that was happening with Adam Page. Adam Page had killed Joey Ryan on being the lead, and they went through this whole total thing about their dicks and whatnot, and he's a penis faker, and it was absolutely hilarious. It's a fun little being the elite storyline that happens, and Hangman has the blood on his boots, and he's just freaking out, and his boots start talking to him, and he's just getting crazier and crazier and more paranoid, and all the meanwhile, Joey Janela is just being Joey Janela during all this. So, like, if you didn't know who Joey Janela was, you were just like, okay, Hangman Page is just facing some guy that I don't know who he is. But to me, I really enjoyed this match. I love the somersault that Janela did off of the Cracker Barrel. I always love Page's front flip clothesline that he does. That burning hammer onto the ladder. Ow. Penelope Ford even got in there kicking some butt. That was pretty cool to see. I loved Joey Janela's elbow in this too. He basically just threw himself. It wasn't like a jumping elbow. He was just like, he Jazzy Jeffed the elbow. Like, it just was so crazy. Then there was that 2-table spot, and he only went through one. And we got the funny boots thing throwing Hangman Page off his game. Then the telephone that's like the same telephone that he used to kill Joey Ryan. And then the Hangman's finisher off the ladder through the table. Yeah. Holy shit, man.
That one, yeah, that you talk about scary moments.
Whoo. I gave this 4.25 Barbershop Windows.
Yeah, I love with Joey Janela, you kind of see like the spot from Fight for the Fallen, or was it Fighter Fest, was the unsanctioned match. It's Fighter Fest.
Yeah, yep.
You see that moment he's jumping off the ladder onto Moxley, like that was awesome. Like you can see him building up to that here, like he's getting the experience with that elbow drop. So I really like that you kind of see the progression of him now. I agree with you with everything with Hangman, his boots talking to him, the announcers, saying his boots are literally talking to him, made me laugh.
Yeah.
So there's been some other wrestling guy I've been listening to talk about the pale and flubby Joey Janela. I want to know, too, in your opinion, do you think that the psychology of, quote, the wrestling look is gone? Because to me, you see these, like, I feel like the Shawn Michaels, it kind of broke the mold a little bit. It's kind of progressed, but I don't need to see a 6'6" jack dude as a wrestler. Like a Joey Janela, he is a wrestler to me. They're all shapes and sizes. Like, why is it that there's this big, you don't look like a wrestler, you're flubby, you're pale, you don't have the look? Like, what is that? Is that just old school mentality, or what is the thoughts of the wrestling community now on that?
That's funny. That's like, that guy's just a WWE mark. Like, was that guy Vince McMahon? back in the day, that was wrestling too.
That's true. Yeah,
not every dude was 6'6" and jacked and chiseled. It really kind of started because of Hogan ran with it, but even before that, you had superstar Billy Graham, who really was looking different. Then you had the Road Warriors, who were really looking different. Look at some of these other guys. I mean, hell, look at the Freebirds, for crying out loud. It's not like the Freebirds were looking, all sorts. I mean, Terry Gordy didn't look like a ripped dude. He looked like a scary man. He was a barrel-chested dude. Some of these guys, look at even old school Ric Flair. You take a look at like old Ric Flair photos on Google, and I mean, even he looks like a burly boy. He doesn't look like a jacked dude. He just looks like a country boy who's going to destroy you.
Yeah, that country strong look.
The whole idea, I mean, look at Dusty Rhodes, for crying out loud. My belly may be a little too big. My butt may be a little bit too big. It's just, I don't know, man. A tough guy is a tough guy no matter what. If you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough, right? And so pale, skinny, flubby, whatever, dude. Look at Spike Dudley, too. Little dude, skinny. Yeah. He was tough as nails, man. He could get his ass kicked and he'd still keep getting back up and fighting. So, the psychology of the wrestling look, throw it out the door, man. I mean, the whole idea, look at the whole idea, and I hate to compare the two, but it's like, if you compare anything legitimately, it is like MMA. Hoist Gracie comes into the UFC. Hoist Gracie is this little skinny dude that looks like he's wearing PJs to the octagon, and he's wiping the floor with these guys that are twice his size. So don't tell me about the psychology of the wrestling look. I'm sorry, it just doesn't fly with me.
Yeah, I mean, they always talk about, like, it's not the size of the dog, it's not the fight in the dog. What is it? How's that go? It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
Yes, yeah.
Like, that used to be, like, that was, like, I butchered it, but that used to be, like, like, oh, I'm not, like, a 6'6" guy. Yeah, there's total fight in me. Then I get up and I'm like, no, don't hit me. But, I think we're on the same page with that, but I've been hearing that and, like, just bad-mouthing Joey Janela, and I'm like, the dude works, and I enjoy him.
Yeah.
I mean, this, you get to see Paige's crazy moonsault, which I liked. This felt to me more like a mainstream hardcore match. The one we got at Fyter Fest was a little bit more above mainstream, I guess. And I say mainstream like something you'd see on TV.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's kind of what this match felt for me. The ring announcers were great in this too, because they talked about the table in the ring. And it's like, sometimes with the table in the ring, you get hoisted on your own petard. Janela's flying elbow, you mentioned. The announcers also mentioned Paige, who has murdered Joey Ryan, which made me laugh. Excalibur. I've got a great note for Excalibur later in this, but Excalibur telling the audience, the guys, on how to get over with their ladies. I love that. I guess there's two other quick questions I have for you. So, in all your interactions, are there guys out there who won't do a hardcore match? And if those are guys who won't do a hardcore match, are they kind of looked down upon in the wrestling community?
Yeah, there's guys who won't, and no, they're not looked down upon. It's just, it depends what it is. I always equate it to kind of, some people like the NFL and some people like college football, right? And some people even like high school football. It's just, each area of wrestling, each area of creativity is for certain people and certain wrestlers. I know guys that would not ever want to take thumbtack spots. I mean, shoot, I wouldn't want to take a thumbtack spot. That's not for me, man. But I also know guys that are like, yeah, if it moves the story along and if it makes sense to the story, then yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, there's no guys out there. Even I haven't been in a situation yet where I met like a hardcore, like a deathmatch wrestler who would be like, legitimately, I'm not saying in character, but legitimately call another dude a pussy or something like that. And I use that word just with the territory, like that. I'm not saying that that's what I say, but the derogatory terms of what someone might call someone if they're not going to do this. But I haven't met a guy who is like, no, actually a lot of guys are pretty respectful about it and they understand and they realize not every guy is going to want to do this. Not every guy is going to want to take those spots. So yeah, there are guys that just are like, nah. I mean, going through a table, like you said, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's like, this is like TV hardcore. This isn't really hardcore. This isn't anything more than what you expect from a death match or anything like that. This is, hey, we're going to go through a table and there's going to be a ladder spot, and that's kind of it. But I don't know. It depends, man. And some of those spots, definitely, you can tell, like Joey Janela just has no fear to take Hangman Page's finisher off a ladder through a table. To me, I'd be like, nope.
Yeah. Nope. Let's do that a little bit closer to the ground, please.
I'd be like, okay, yeah. You can throw me off the ladder and through the table. And even then, I'd be like, I don't know, man. So yeah. Guys are pretty respectful with each other. You've been through the business and you've paid your dues and whatnot. You're not really going to get guys who are like, really big assholes about it. At least in my experience. Can't talk about it. Like I said, I gotta say, I'm not trained to be a wrestler. So, I'm not going to say that I'm not speaking for anyone. I'm just speaking for myself, my own personal experiences, doing commentary and whatnot, meeting guys, knowing guys. I've never been in a situation like that, unless everyone's just joking and busting each other's chops. No one's legitimate been like, no, you're a wuss, for not wanting to do that.
Gotcha. So they're like, you're taking those thumbtacks and you're going to like it. They kind of work together like, okay, this is what I'll do. This is what I'll do. All right, let's do that.
I mean, yeah, that's basically it, man. I think that's just basically it for a wrestling match too. Poking fun, like getting back at that Chico character, even like it's always the green guy asking basically the person that they're wrestling, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And you kind of are trying to edge yourself in like, yeah, well, I do this one move, and it's like, depending on who the dude is, if they say no, you're not doing that one move, so same thing, even with the small stuff. It just depends. It's just how far is one person going to go? Okay, well, you know what? I respect that. You won't do the thumbtack spot, but you know what? I will. So can you body slam me on the thumbtacks? Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, yeah, that's cool with me.
That's interesting because I think you to put me onto it, but Y2J's podcast, he had Joey Ryan on there actually pretty recently.
Yeah.
And he talked about the spots with his dick and like he does like a boob toss with women too.
Yep.
And he was totally respectful. He's like, listen, I do this. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. You can go for it and you can counter it, or with the boob toss, same thing. So it's just cool to know that that's kind of the culture of wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, right. As much as some think it's barbaric or they're sophomoric or whatever you want to say, on the other hand, it's actually really cool, and it's always been pretty accepting. As it's wrestling is a weird area, man. It's a weird thing all on its own, but it's like for a thing that's been so accepting, it's also on one hand like. It's been very accepting of like the LGBTQIA community, but on the other hand, it's also been very homophobic too. Yeah, it's a weird animal. It's a weird animal, but yet it's like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's kind of like, hey, I can make fun of it, but you can't make fun of it type of situation. It's like, oh, if you're from a certain area, I can make fun of the area, but if you're not from my area, you're not making fun of it, or else we're fighting.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
I feel like that's wrestling in the same, like, we're accepting of all our friends and whatnot, and we'll make fun of them, but if you start making fun of them, no, that's not cool.
But yeah, I enjoyed this match overall, and I gave it a 4 Barber Shop Windows. So let's go to our next championship match. It's for the Ring of Honor Championship. It's Jay Lethal taking on Flip Gordon. So him using the Macho Man gimmick, I remember, like, again, I've been out of wrestling for a bit, but there'd be times I'd be flipping through, some local channels. They'd have like Ring of Honor or Impact or something on. And I remember catching this guy multiple times, Jay Lethal, and him doing that Macho Man gimmick. And I loved it. Like, that's one wrestling voice I do fairly well. And it's always a character that I love because it's Macho Man Randy Savage. It's the Slim Jim guy, right? And I loved it. I love the little callbacks in this match to Randy Savage and then Hogan and then Ultimate Warrior.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh my gosh, like the nostalgia was just like coming up, in folds. They had lots of false finishes. I've since Bully Ray's kind of gone more into Impact and things like that, or TNA. I've kind of started not liking him as much, I guess. I don't really know why. So I know you'll probably talk about him a little bit more. So I'm curious about your thoughts on him. But this match, I mean, it was kind of more of a gimmicky, didn't have a lot of the fun stuff, I guess, to say. But I rated it fairly low, but it was enjoyable for what it was. I gave it a 2.75 Barbershop Windows.
Nice, man. Nice. I mean, I can totally respect that and know where you're coming from with that. Bully Ray, just quickly, he really went off on his own when it was TNA and not Impact. And, he's created the Bully Ray character, which really got over, and he was doing a good job of. Bully Ray's always been a guy that the fans, some of them love him, some of them absolutely hate him. Like, he's a dude that you always felt in real life, and you heard the real life stories too, that he was a dick. And I actually got to meet Bully Ray at ROH when it came into town, when he started working with ROH again. Or, I mean, I don't know if I think that was his first time ever working with ROH. And I respectfully, I saw him walk into the locker room. We happened to be outside while the show was still going on, and I just said, hey, just want to say thank you and, love the match tonight, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, thank you, and he just kept walking. Like, it was one of those, it was a mutual understanding. Like, he knew I wasn't going to try to stop him for a picture or anything like that. I wasn't going to try to disrespect him. But on the other hand, and I knew he wanted to do this. And, so it was, my run-in with Bully Ray was great, but I've heard some stories. And I've heard where he's been a dick to people. I think it just depends on what type of Bully Ray he gets. I think he's one of those guys too that it's like, hey, you're not too far from your gimmick. So, some of the best gimmicks are the ones that's not really a gimmick. You just turn your dial up to 11. We said that before. But I love Black Machismo, man. I love Jay Lethal in general. I think Jay Lethal is one of the most... oh gosh, it's hard to say. I don't want to say that he's underutilized or anything like that, because I don't think he is. And I don't think he's one of those guys that I don't want to say he's a sleeper either, because he's not. But it's just, I don't know, there's something about it. It just seems like if more of the casual fan got to see Jay Lethal, I really think, he'd be at the top of WWE right now. And it's just so weird to me, everything about it. And it was nice to see him on this stage with it. I loved his shenanigans with Brandy as Miss Elizabeth, what he was doing. He threw her up on his shoulders like the reunited thing, and then changing back into Jay Lethal. I loved and that was another part of the Being the Elite gimmick storyline that went on. Jay Lethal was doing his own thing and people would hit him. He was suffering. I think they were playing on some of the dirt sheets saying that he was suffering from a concussion or something like that. And it totally took off. And so it was like, oh, hey, he doesn't even know who he is. And so he kept channeling Macho Man, and it was just hilarious. And so I really enjoyed Flip Gordon, really enjoy Jay Lethal, and I thought they put on one heck of a match. I liked seeing Lanny Poffo out there, and that's Macho Man's brother, in case anyone doesn't know. But I gave this a 4 just because of just how entertaining it is. If you see this type of match and you don't like it, well, then, that was kind of ROH matches, so... for a period of time, that's kind of how they were. I don't know now, but you might not like ROH stuff. So anyway, I liked the match though.
Love it. So we get another match here. It's Kenny Omega going up against Penta El Zero. Party Johnnetty, what were your thoughts about this match?
Oh man, it was good counters with one another. This was another trademark send in the soundbite. I was expecting more though. It was I don't know, man. I the build up to this match, I was really like thinking it was going to be something that just tore the walls down. Both these guys are talented in their own rights, and I love watching both of them. But like, I don't know. This match was fun. It just, I don't know. I was expecting this to be like the match of the night, and it just was not the match of the night for me. That package pile driver on the apron, though, was oh man, scary always, but loved it. And I also forgot about Jericho coming out with the whole, blackout and then hitting the code breaker. But I still gave it a 4 Barbershop Windows just because both men are talented and it was a fun match. But man, it's like if I had to rate this amongst a Pentagon match or a Kenny Omega match amongst their library, it would be down on the list.
Yeah, I know, especially, I mean, we saw some decent matches up to this point, too, and you think this would be the one to kind of blow the roof off the building, but it wasn't terrible. Like, I enjoyed it, but, there was a good running power slam, lots of pops from the crowd, lots of false finishes, lots of V triggers. So they had a lot of like video game repetitiveness to it, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Trying to get the other person's level down.
Yep.
I thought it was cool. They threw in like the G1 climax where they wrestle in buildings where the temperature is 100 plus.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's true or not, but it was kind of a cool little throw in to show kind of like how exhausted Omega was. Mm-hmm. The Jericho part. So I didn't get to see this live. So when you saw this live and you saw Jericho show up, what was like? Was it an oh shit moment when you saw that? Was it unexpected?
It still was. Like, you expected it, but it still was a fun, like, oh shit moment. Like, Jericho said he wasn't going to be there, and I think he said he was going to be in Japan even. Like, he was like, there's no way I can make this, and blah, blah, blah. So when he showed up, it was still fun to see it. I mean, it's so funny because he does this. He does this in New Japan. He did it here. So it's like, you shouldn't be surprised, but it was still fun, man. It was still, I'm not getting tired of it. And he's still doing it. He did it at Fight for the Fallen. Still not getting tired of it. But yeah, it was weird. It was still like, oh, sweet, man. But it was also kind of like, yeah, you basically came in, you got paid to say, see you on the Jericho Cruise. And that was it. It was just a Jericho Cruise commercial.
Yeah, that's right. You got a free little commercial out of it. I don't know if it was sold out at that point, the Jericho Cruise. I remember seeing that too. I'm like, that would be awesome to do.
Yeah,
but if not, that probably sold the final tickets for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I finished this one. I gave it a 3 Barbershop Windows. So our next match, we have, I don't want to butcher his name, Kazuchika?
Don't
Okada?
even try to. Just Okada is fine.
Okada going against Marty Scurll. So I didn't realize this until the Marty and Okada got like next to each other. Okada is tall. He is a big man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Okada's a tall guy, and Marty's a short guy too, so it makes it even crazier looking.
Yeah, because I think, is Okada like 6'3", 6'4"?
Yeah, yeah. I believe he's 6'3". He might be 6'4", but I thought he was 6'3", but he's just tall for just like a Japanese wrestler in general. And Marty Scurll, I want to say, is like maybe on a good day 5'8".
Depending on what like gas station he's walking out of.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. His build height is 5'9", but I'm pretty sure I saw Marty before, and I am legitimately 5'9", and I'm pretty sure his build height is 5'9", and that in real life he's probably more like 5'7"-ish, maybe 5'8", but
when he does interviews, he just gets on his tippy toes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I mean, I could be wrong.
This match kind of felt a little repetitive from some of the other matches we saw over the night. The straitjacket submission and the reversal, I really like that. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. They had a good little multi-pin reversals going on. You had the double rainmakers for the win. I feel like this match went a little bit too long. I don't know what they were kind of given time for, but it was like 22 minutes, I think, altogether. So probably a little bit too long, especially for how long the show went altogether.
Yeah.
And I dropped this one in at 3.125 Barbershop Windows.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because during the time that this match caused controversy, and out of everyone, not just both of them, but Marty Scurll got the heat for it. That they knew that the event was running long, and someone said that they were told, hey, sorry, you have to shorten your match, and they didn't shorten the match, and so they went on longer and really screwed the main event. Yet both Nick and Matt Jackson came out and said, no, that's completely false. We told Marty and Okada to do the match for however long they felt necessary to take it, as long as it was within reason, and then they would tell them to wrap the match up. So I don't know. So it's funny to see you think, oh yeah, it kind of went a little long, because that's, even people were saying that, like, they're like, yeah, this match felt like it was supposed to end at a certain point, and then it went over that point, and really it messed things up. I don't think that. I think it just was one of those matches that ran a little long. I don't know if Okada knows how to have a match under 15 minutes anymore. So I enjoyed the turnbuckle spot with Marty and Okada up there, like hanging out with one another in the superplex. I did enjoy this match for what it was. If you knew the backstory that was going into this match, Marty had talked about trying to move up into the heavyweight division in New Japan, and he was a junior heavyweight. And so he kind of went through all this like kind of fun stuff, trying to train to get bigger. And like Nick Aldis actually said, you got to eat donuts. That's the secret. And I listened to that advice today, and it was wrong advice. And it was just kind of funny. And it actually reached to a point where Dunkin' Donuts actually sent Marty Scurll like a black card or something like that, where nice. Marty gets like free donuts for the rest of his life now because of this like impromptu Dunkin' Donuts free commercial on Being the Elite. I thought that was pretty hilarious. And awesome.
Winning, right?
Yeah, man. And I loved the Rainmaker teases. They're just the craziness between Marty and Okada. Even like with the backstage stuff, and Okada kind of teased him like, you're never going to get above 205. And then in this match, you see that like Marty is, not only is it just a wrestling match where he's trying to prove himself against Okada, but he's trying to make his way into the heavyweight division. And what better way to do that than to beat one of the top superstars in the division? And, They had a good back and forth. The crossface chicken wing spots, just trying to connect it, like trying to do the Rainmaker on each other. The breaking of the fingers. You see a lot of guys have stolen that gimmick from him now. And I liked the ending. I did like the two, the double Rainmakers for the win. I like the Rainmaker. It's such a simple move, yet it feels so effective. And it's funny because it's like you would think the tombstone would be the finish.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
And the Rainmaker would be the setup, but it's not. And I like that even more. And it's like the cherry on top for it. I really enjoyed this match. I gave it 4 stars, or 4 barbershop windows. Oops, stealing someone else's rating.
Well, we get to our final main event match. It's the Golden Elite, Ibushi and the Young Bucks going against Bandito, Rey Fenix, and Rey Mysterio. So party, Johnnetty. How did you feel about this main event?
All right, here we are. I was so excited to see this happen. Love seeing Ibushi and Rey in the ring with one another. Thought that was pretty sweet. They didn't have time to do everything that they wanted to do. That was kind of a bummer. So it looked like they basically just ran through all their spots. They're like, all right, we got to do this one next, and then this one, and then this one. There was a cool little spot with Matt Jackson, both Rey Fenix and Rey Mysterio and Bandito. And then it ended up Bandito takes the L. This match was over before it began. I wish we would have got a little bit more with it. But then again, it could be argued that it was like, oh, hey, we just saw another a Bucks match with the Luchadors. But I gave it a 3.75 barbershop windows. I loved Rey Mysterio's Wolverine-inspired outfit. I always love Rey's outfits. Love seeing Rey Mysterio on a big stage outside of the WWE since WCW. So that was awesome to see as well. But I enjoyed it. Wish it was a little bit longer, but it really was just kind of spot after spot after spot.
Yeah, I know when I was watching this, I saw the final match ended like there was like 12, 13 minutes left in the feed I was watching. And I was like, oh shit, like, am I going to get cut off early? Like, is something wrong with this feed? Like, no, it's just going to be a short match. And I noticed too, like, Ray's team took a while to get to the ring. Like, each came down individually.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if there was some mistakes in the back for that, because I know they're running quick on time. But like you said, I love the Wolverine gear. I'm curious too. I caught as I was watching this, I knew they were low on time, and I heard in the audio, like, maybe 3 or 4 minutes into the match, I heard somebody say, "Got to go home."
Oh, that's funny. I didn't catch that.
And it felt a little bit like, again, it was like 3 or 4 minutes in the match. They still had quite a bit of time for what the match took, but definitely everybody knew that they were running low on time. I love the Bulldog clothesline combo. We see that quite a bit. I love that. The triple Hurricanrana was pretty badass. Not plausible, I don't think, but it was awesome nonetheless. The one thing I thought was kind of was Matt took like multiple hits, but he still kicked out. That kind of felt a little weird to me, and it was a little bit of a messy ending, due to the time, of course. But I think if they had you take a few minutes here or there and give them a full 20, I think you would have got a better match. So that kind of lowered it for me to a 2.75 Barber Shop Windows.
Oh yeah, totally understandable. I mean, yeah, I am not surprised that you gave it that rating. It was a match that was just kind of like, oh well, this is cool to see, but man, is it kind of a bummer. It's almost like when you watch a Tyson fight or something, you're getting amped up for it, and then he kills the dude in the first round.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
Like, all that build up for nothing.
And it makes more sense too. I think the first review we did, you talked about how, the first time the Bucks really got to see the main stage, they didn't really get to showcase themselves, and it makes a lot more sense now. So
yeah.
Again, they've got to get these things under their belt and learn from it. And I think going forward, they're just going to get better and better. So, but that leads us to our 5-star match of the night. So, Party Johnnetty, for your 5-star match from All In, what'd you have?
Oh, it was definitely for me, Joey Janela versus Hangman Page in that Chicago street fight. Just how crazy it was. The fact Joey Ryan comes out at the end, does the dick flip, and then a bunch of penises carry off Hangman Page. Everything about it was just ridiculous, and I loved it. And so that was really my 5-star match.
Yeah, and for my 5-star match, I go with the championship NWA title match with Cody and Nick Atlas. And again, I think it was just the story there. Like, it pulled me in so many emotions. When they had there's more than one royal family in wrestling. Like, I don't know how much Cody really believes in all that. I'm sure he does. You never know what the gray line is, like what's gimmick, what's not.
Yeah.
But seeing that, like his brother and all that stuff, it's just like, oh my God, like this is the stuff that tears at my heartstrings. Father, son, brothers, history, championships, working to get to something. And they sold this story really well. So that really made this my 5-star match. All right, so let's get to our main event segment. So our main event is the question we want to answer. So, Party Johnnetty, do you think anyone during All In or after All In thought that this would lead to AEW? So I'm kind of saying, put yourself into some other wrestling company, and you're sitting there, you see this All In go on, and you think, that's cute, never hear from these kids again. Or do you think somebody's like, oh, shit, we are in trouble?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. I think it really was like, hey, and was it recently that they admitted that Tony Khan was backstage at All In, but they still say that he was only back there as a friend and a fan, that he wasn't back there because of the start of wanting to create AEW. I think in his mind, obviously Tony Khan was thinking, if this does well, we're going to be starting AEW. But at the time, if I was let's be completely honest. If I'm WWE, I'm going, well, good job, guys, but you got a long way to go. And at first, when they were talking about this, they made it just seem like this was going to be a yearly thing, and that was kind of it. And to me, in that case, if I'm the big promotion, I'm just going to go, well, you know, good for them. They're showcasing new guys that I can ultimately steal away later on. So thanks. That's awesome. But yeah, I don't think and still, I mean, WWE is confident and cocky in themselves. To them, this was no threat at all, but it is still exciting. I equate it. There was a scene, and I don't think I've said this yet. I've just thought it, and maybe I have, and I apologize if I have. There's a scene in Dexter. I think it's like season 3, maybe. And I'm talking about Dexter, the serial killer, where he almost gets caught because they find like in the ocean, like the body parts. And spoilers, if you haven't seen this, I'm sorry, man, but you know, it's an old TV show. And so like, he's always felt like he can't feel anything. And he was like, he like feels his heart racing for the first time, and it actually gets him excited. And immediately when I saw AEW get announced, I felt like Vince McMahon had the same exact reaction. Like the dude's just going through the motions. And then when this popped up, it finally got him excited again to be like, oh, competition, you know, like, so his heart starts beating, like he's starting to have that like hesitation again. And I mean, I'm not calling Vince McMahon a serial killer at all, but I mean, I'll leave that up to speculation for you guys, but I don't think he is.
I mean, allegedly killer of some careers, but that's
right. Yeah, exactly. You know,
but yeah, I don't really know too much. Like, I kind of feel like probably in the same boat to you. That's kind of like, oh, that's cute. And you kind of see the snowball effect take effect. I don't think WWE is probably too nervous at this point. Again, it's, you know, they've even sold it as not competition, but just an alternative.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But yeah, as I was watching this, I'm just kind of curious, you know, as, you know, hindsight is 2020, just the perspective on it to think, you know, what were people thinking when they saw this all in? All right, well, let's jump to our next segment. It's our Cheap Heat. So this segment, it might get us a little heat, so that's why we call it Cheap Heat. So the PodRockers Cheap Pigment segment is what we didn't like about All In. So Party Johnnetty, what were your thoughts about All In?
All right, so obviously timing issues, and they're still having problems with this. They haven't perfected it yet. The almost a 5-hour event, I want to say.
Yeah,
it was like
all said and told, yeah.
4 hours for the main show, and then the 0 hour. It's like, that's a lot of wrestling, man. And I know that this was kind of like the Independence WrestleMania, so I understand that, but it's just also like, whew, that is a lot of wrestling, and you still really weren't able to fit it in. And that's anytime. I don't care who it is. After like 3 hours of wrestling is a lot of wrestling. So that's tough to try to keep fans' attention span and whatnot. And it's also like, if I have something to do, I want to do something, you know, you're taking up half of my day. So another thing I didn't like too, and I hope we don't see this throughout AEW, is when I first saw the announcement and whatnot, I said, well, surely not everyone from being the lead is going to win, right? And like, someone has to take the L in the group. And that really wasn't it. Like, all of them won. And so, I mean, besides Marty Scurll at the time, when he was a part of it. And that made sense to me because you got to still make Okada look strong. But it was also kind of like, well, I don't know, man. The Bucks haven't lost yet. I know Kenny Omega's lost, but I just, in this one, I was thinking like, someone in the group has to take the L. I thought, well, you know what? They really are building this up like Cody's going to win, so he's going to lose. And they didn't swerve me like I thought they would. So yeah, seeing all the guys get over just kind of was like a little cheesy to me. But you know, it is what it is. And maybe that cheese didn't bother me as much as now looking back at it, just because it still seems like that. But I know it's still way too early to count on anything. So I don't know. It's fun to go back and watch as well. It was nice to rewatch this with new eyes and with everything that was going on. But whew, was it too long. Lastly, I think for me, the person that got the short end of the stick the most was ROH out of all of this. ROH helped them with this event. They said, hey, you need anything, you let us know. We'll let you guys know what we do. And it was a learning experience for everyone, but ROH really did a lot to help them. And now it's like, look at ROH. They've lost. Well, I don't know if I'd say they've lost anything with AEW, but it sounds like they're not really on, I don't want to say, I think they're still speaking, but I feel like there's not going to be any back and forth with talent. And there might be. I hope there is. I don't know how the relations seem strained with New Japan. And they just recently announced that they're splitting with NWA, like Billy Corgan and them are splitting from ROH too. So it's like, whew, man, not only did ROH get like their talent picked over from WWE, but now they're getting their stuff picked over from everyone else, New Japan, Impact, and now AEW. And so it's like, where's ROH going to go from here?
Yeah, that's a thought I had watching it. You think ROH is like, oh man, if this thing takes off, maybe we could do like 2 of these a year, or 3 of these a year. Like this could be like our jumping off point. And they're like, we're going to go start our own thing.
Yep, exactly. It's like the supportive, significant other for someone until they finally make it and they're like, see ya, bye.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, you go over, you help that hot chick out, like, put all of her stuff together for a pool, you clean it, you get it ready. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have a party. Like, oh, what time should I be there? Like, oh, you're not. Thanks. Bye.
Oh, thanks for helping me. I'll see you later.
Door slam in the face.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, that's my cheap heat.
I agree with you on the time on this. So, I didn't watch this live, and I just recently watched it, and I definitely had to split it up into like 2 or 3 different viewings because 5 hours, and I know we've talked about some of the other events that are like, been about 3-4 hours long, and I enjoy all of it, but it's a lot to take in. I mean, you're sitting there for 4 to 5 hours, and that's, you can barely sit to watch sporting events that long, let alone a wrestling event. So I'm curious how that's going to be. So I definitely agree with you there. The camera and audio work obviously was a little bit rough on this. Again, something that they're just starting to get into, so it's going to take some time. They didn't have the budget probably for the best, setups and best crews for it, but pretty cheap heat. I'm not trying to fat shame, but the hefty ref was fun. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. So
in the match with Cody, there was a super kick that I could definitely, like the cut of the angle, you definitely saw him miss quite a bit. I mean, that's small stuff. Joey Janela's long shotgun clothesline was a little exaggerated for me, so I'm not really sure how I felt about that. Also, Omega, when he came out, he wasn't wearing his IWGP title. Again, I'm sure that's all just logistics of the different companies and probably what he can and can't do, but they talked about him being the champion, but you didn't get to see him wear it. Just kind of like, oh, I'd really like to see him with that title.
Yeah, right.
There's the lights going out kind of cliche in the Omega match. I know that's really tough to do when you want to do spots like that to surprise people, but I wish there was a different way to do that. I'd really enjoy it. And the last thing, this isn't something I didn't like about this, but it's a thought I had, watching AEW for a bit and then this match. I honestly feel, and a lot of people be like, you're an idiot, but I'm going to feel this way. I kind of feel like Excalibur may be the voice of this generation of wrestling fans, like new people coming up, getting into AEW, like my kiddo, like kids that are like in the 5 to 6 year old range that start watching stuff. That's going to be your JR.
Yeah, man. I don't think you're too far off, to be completely honest, man. I think the one thing that makes Excalibur a great commentator is he has this knowledge. He was a wrestler. He realized that he made a better commentator than he did a wrestler. He was talking about, I think it was injuries or whatnot, put him on the sideline. And then he was like, well, I still want to do stuff. So he decided to do commentary. Then he realized he was like, man, I'm a lot better at this than I am at the wrestling thing. So I'm just going to keep doing this. And I know he's gotten some comments on wearing the mask while he commentates, but I like it.
Oh, I do too. Yeah.
I think it's cool. And I think it just brings something to him. something extra, and I really like him. I like him as a commentator, and like between him and Mauro Ranallo, they're pretty much my favorite commentators that are out here right now doing this stuff. Don Callis also is an amazing commentator as well. And if somehow he ended up joining with AEW, which is not going to happen, but if he did, that'd be pretty cool too.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed him on there. And yeah, 'cause I love the mask. A lot of people bitch about that, but JR had his hat, King had his crown, like he's got his mask. Like that's
exactly
gonna be a thing. So
yep.
But just a couple little cheap heat things from me. So let's jump on to some happier moments. Let's get into our mark moments. So let's get our mark on in the BEP Mark Moment segment where we talk about the moments from All In that made us mark out. So for me, just a few. The Bullet Club logo I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
You had mentioned ROH. I had a question to I liked hearing about it, like hearing him talk about this cross promotion stuff. And I was going to ask you how you felt about AEW with ROH now and how ROH almost feels used at this point and now.
Yeah.
I love the little interview with Omega where he asked I can't remember what her name was in his interview. Yes. But he's like, "Why are you standing like that?" And she's like, "Well, it's to make you look taller." He's like, "Oh no, that's fine." And she's like, "Well, why are you standing on your tippy toes?" He's like, "I'm trying to get a calf workout in right now."
Yeah. I enjoyed that. That was a nice little jab at WWE.
Yeah. The Cody NWA title history is great. Penelope Ford. I've seen her on a couple Be the Elites. I really enjoy her. Like in that too, they talked about bookings and stuff like that during that match. Mm-hmm. And then I put the bad girls moves in the ring. Like if we can get her in the women's division, AEW, that'd be, I don't know if she does any matches or anything like that, or she's just strictly kind of a manager, but she's kind of got like some interest for me for sure.
Yeah, man. No, I mean, she is a wrestler. She's trained to wrestle. I just don't know, what she's doing now. I don't know if she's stopped. I'm like, I haven't really seen her. She was doing stuff with Joey Janela, and then she didn't show up to Fight for the Fallen, right? Or was she there?
I don't think I've seen her in any of the AEW stuff, or maybe she did an interview or something like that, or maybe it was one of the Road 2s or something, but I don't recall seeing. This is the first time I remember seeing her in something was in All In. I could be wrong, but
yeah, when they originally announced, they said AEW, it was both Penelope Ford and Joey Janela. And even her Wikipedia says she's signed to AEW. So I don't know. So who knows? Maybe we'll see her actually wrestle in the women's division. I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
You already mentioned the Joey Ryan spot with the penis monks, and he has come again.
Yes.
Yes, everybody, I'm 12. And I laughed really hard. And I love Paige selling it, too. He's like, I murdered you.
Yep.
And last, just in this all in all together, was just the celebrating the history of the multiple promotions and the independent wrestlers from all over. I really love that, especially coming from somebody who hasn't got to see a lot of that stuff. So really, really enjoyed that. So Party Johnnetty, what are some of your mark moments?
Oh, yeah, man. It really did, in the same vein, reminded me of all of those promotions coming together. It reminded me of like Starrcade back in the day with NWA and everything, and seeing at one point all of these great talents from the territory days coming together and wrestling on a big main show. And it did feel like this. It did give it that feel. That was awesome. I don't have enough time, really. I feel like I've peppered out my mark out moments throughout this whole episode, and we've gone Broadway, man. We've gone quite some time with it. So everything was awesome. I loved the storylines leading up to the point. The whole experience just made me happy, and to relive it, even though it hasn't been a year yet, but it's coming up on its year. It was still amazing to see it and to experience it and be a part of it. And it still makes me smile.
I love it. So we usually we have a BEP Elite 5 segment where we rank the AEW wrestlers, but I thought it'd make more sense for this round to rank the top five wrestlers from All In. So Party Johnnetty, how would you rank the top 5 from this event?
Yeah, definitely. This one, I put Flip Gordon at my number 5 spot because he finally got booked, and I thought that was great. Had a great showing in both the Jay Lethal match and the Battle Royal. Number 4, it was a tie for me. And I guess I'm cheating a little bit here because I still have a third, second, and a first. But I actually had Cody and Nick Aldis in my 4th spot. That just... I felt was they were too good. I couldn't give it over one or another. My third spot, I had Jay Lethal. Second spot, I had Marty Scurll. And in my first spot, I had Okada.
Yeah, so for me, running through it, I have Okada at 5. Stephen Amell at 4. Again, I feel like he kind of showcased himself a little bit in this.
Yeah.
That's more of like he outperformed what I thought he would do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Number 3, MJF. Number 2, Tessa Blanchard. And number 1, Cody, because that story, again, just really, really sold me. All right, so something else we like to do, we like to find the worker who is on the lower side of this card or an underdog, and we want to put him over in our Put Him Over segment. So for me, I mentioned her earlier, and I love her to death, and I want her in AEW, but I think she's signed right now to WWE NXT. It's Chelsea Green. I think I had this thought, silly thought probably, but I thought she'd have a great feud with Britt Baker, kind of playing on her being like not bipolar, but more like two-faced and, multiple personalities, trying to get Britt Baker as a doctor to like help her out, and Britt Baker trying to be like, listen, I'm a dentist, I'm not a psychologist. I thought would be pretty funny. So my Put Him Over would be Chelsea Green.
Nice. Yeah, I really, mine, I don't feel, I've already kind of mentioned, I don't feel like I need to put him over, but I do feel like if people are listening to this and they want to know more about this guy, Jay Lethal, check him out. Like everything that he does, he had hilarious. He's got a hilarious Macho Man impression. Has a great. You probably have seen it. A lot of people have seen it on YouTube. Him battling Ric Flair back and forth. He has a great Ric Flair impression, and that's absolutely hilarious. When he was in TNA, he's been with ROH. I don't know why NXT/WWE has never picked him up. I really feel like this dude just, I could imagine the matches between him and AJ Styles, and it's just like, I feel like it'd be awesome. And I don't know if he just rubs people the wrong way. I don't know. I've heard some stuff, I don't tend to believe it, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I would love to see him in AEW if it ever happens. Yeah,
it's a guy I've seen when you see I look for wrestling stuff a little bit, so seeing him back, 2 or 3 years is saying a lot for where I was at that point in time. So I think that's a good pick. All right, so we got some under the ring news. We got one story we're going to share tonight, and it's the big announcement from It's the big announcement from AEW, and they want to know if you're elite. Are you elite, Party Johnnetty? Because on October 2nd, that will be the first of the weekly episodic TV series for All Elite Wrestling on TNT. So it's going to premiere October 2nd.
Oh, I'm totally elite. Totally. It's has me excited. They mentioned the time was from 8 to 10. So that makes me happy as well. And I'm looking so forward to this. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I'm pumped. The first one's going to take place in Washington, D.C., so that'll be awesome. The 8 to 10 is pretty nice, because I thought some people talked maybe 9 to 11, 10 to midnight, so which would be rough when we got Party Johnnetty, we got a lot of partying we need to do at night, and that cuts into it a little bit.
That cuts into our partying. No, thank you.
But if you're excited to take this elite trip with us, remember you can leave us feedback. You can also send us a promo. You want to cut a promo, you feel like you got a good promo, send it our way, and we'll show you here in our From the Stand segment. Just record your voice and send it to PodRockers at BeElitePod.com. All right, Party Johnnetty, can you tell us what we have next for the PodRocker Nation?
Our next episode, we will be bringing you an AEW house show, Wrestling Spotlight, on Cody.
Oh, I am so excited for that. We're going to be crossing promotions. We're going to learn some history. I'm super pumped for that.
Oh, yeah, me too.
All right, PodRocker Nation, reach out to BEP by following us on Twitter at BeElitePod and Instagram at BeElitePodcast. You can email questions, comments, or those amazing, great, fantastic promos to PodRockers at BeElite.com. Like us on Facebook by searching for BeElitePod.
We are desperately out of time for this week's Be Elite Pod, but until next time, I'm Party Johnnetty.
And I'm Shawn Michael saying so long from our BEP Home Elite Studios.
And remember, get off the streets and be elite.